Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. We are live on Rumble, Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV. We're live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on Substack, an amazing collaboration with our friends over at Daily Clout, and of course, every podcast platform you can ever imagine. The Shannon Joy Show Network reaching upwards over 1.52 million eyes and ears every single month, which is amazing. And I couldn't do it without all of you. It is Monday, August 11th, and we are launching another busy broadcast week here today on the Shannon Joy Show. Welcoming the Peter Schiff on the show today. He'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour. You see the headline on today's show, Techno-Fascism rising under Trump. With the NVIDIA scheme, we're going to have a live exclusive with Peter Schiff. We're going to discuss the disparity between Trump's claims of a new golden age in the United States of America and actual economic indicators like jobs numbers, unemployment, manufacturing, and inflation. And Peter Schiff, as you know, is one of the best analysts in the world. We're going to spend an entire hour with him today on the Shannon Joy Show. What is the real story for the average American, the mom and pop business, the regular family? Is the era of small business over as we see these massive global corporations paying to play with Donald Trump in Washington, D.C.? Will our children ever even own homes as we see a housing situation in this country that is locking out the average American from the American dream of home ownership? We'll also discuss the rise of techno-fascism, privatizing Fannie and Freddie, that NVIDIA deal, insider trading, crypto scams, pump and dumps, rug pulls, and Trump Inc. skimming off the top of everything. Is free market capitalism over in the United States of America in exchange for a new global techno-fascism? That's the topic of today's show. Here on the Shannon Joy Show, we'll be welcoming Peter Schiff in at the bottom of the hour. Also, keep it tuned here this week. Daniel Horowitz joining us, I believe, on Thursday of this week, among other amazing guests. Want to thank you all for the amazing support of the Shannon Joy Show. Those of you who go over to theshannonjoy.com, sign up for the daily e-newsletter, and also those of you who support the Shannon Joy Show with your individual contributions. I so appreciate you. This show is independent, not left, not right, just the truth every single day as we face, as the American people, a fire hose in our faces of lies and propaganda from both the left-wing news media and the right-wing news media. Neither of them are getting it right, and the uniparty is firmly in control, working together through every administration to fleece the American people and kill the American dream. We're here to say, oh, hell no. We're not going to sit down and take it, and I couldn't do it without all of you. So let's ease into the show today, slow it down a little bit as we prepare for our special guest. Of course, we're going to have a hard-hitting hour of conversation with Peter Schiff, but I do want to say hello to all of you on the live chat. Guitar Lily is with us today on the live chat. Ooh, I like the necklace. Thank you so much, Guitar Lily. I got this over the weekend. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I escorted my amazing mother-in-law, Lori, and my daughter, Mimi, to New York City for the weekend. So I drove and took the ladies out. We spent 3 nights, 4 days in New York City and did a lot of great shopping. Of course, my daughter Mimi had to go, to all of those hot, teenager stores. And I actually found it was $8, Guitar Lily, at one of those stores, which is, I think a pretty good deal. But we'll see if it turns my neck like, I don't know, orange or purple or green. but it has a cross on it too. So thank you. I appreciate it, Guitar Lily. And we had the best time. I love the country. I love, just getting out into nature. And of course, we love our time outdoors, but there is something just magical about New York City. We had an amazing time. The people are wonderful, except for, we had a couple little issues, but the cab drivers, the doormen, the people who are just everyday workers, just friendly and helpful. The service is amazing. And we also had a wonderful time with our dear friend Naomi Wolf, who took us out to brunch on Sunday, and we explored Brooklyn, which was just phenomenal, just a great neighborhood. I mean, it's huge, but she was the most amazing, gracious hostess. And to introduce my daughter Mimi to such a great, courageous, powerful woman, and just spend some really beautiful time with her and my mother-in-law, who is just amazing, was such a blessing. So yes, we didn't get in until late last night. And again, I was the driver. So it was a lot. It was a lot. Did you see a musical? Asks Guitar Lily. No, we didn't see a musical. We tried to fit as much as we possibly could in. So we toured NBC Studios. We took a bus tour, a couple bus tours. We went to Soho, Little Italy, Chinatown, as you know, Brooklyn. We went to Grand Central Station, which was just unbelievable. The architecture, what was built in this country. We don't build buildings the same way that we did at the turn of the century and at the founding of this country, but the architecture just wonderful. And so Grand Central Station, St. Patrick's Cathedral. Oh my goodness. We wanted to make it to Met. We could not fit it all in. And a musical was on the agenda, but again, there's just a lot, and it takes a lot of time to get to all the places. So yeah, it was great. CJP Rumble, I knew it. Naomi is a brunch person. I'm a brunch person. I love nothing more than a great brunch, and we had a really good time. So yes, speaking of the fire hose in my face every morning, like Mondays coming back from a road trip is always a lot. So let's say hello to everyone else here on the live chat. What are you guys interested in today? Any questions, any comments, anything I missed over the weekend, anything that you loved or hated from last week's show? I'm not sure if you guys saw the show with Naomi Wolf and Sasha Latapova. It was a hot one, lots of views on that one, but I do think it is time that we start getting bitchy for liberty, because liberty is at stake. Free markets are at stake. We have something with this Trump administration, but it is not free market capitalism. That's something that we'll be talking about with Peter Schiff in just a moment here. We have Karen Carpenter 27 on the live chat. Great to see you, Karen Carpenter. Of course, never married. You are brand new. Great to see you on the live chat today. Buskman is with us. We Are All Dead joining us today on the live chat. Of course, CJP Rumble, Mrs. Lovely. Hey, Shannon, how are you? Great to see you. Guitar Lily. Hey, bad girl. Good to see you as well. Sometimes you have to be bad for liberty, and I'm okay with that. Any good news out there? Glad you had a great weekend from Karen Carpenter. Bill Benz, the architecture tells the story across New York State since the Federal Reserve straight downhill. Absolutely, Bill Benz. You guys know I live in an 1890 Victorian in our little village in New York State here on the Erie Canal. And it's an old house, but let me tell you, the house is a tank. They don't build them the way that they built back in the day. And as someone who's lived in a lot of homes, new builds and obviously an old Bill, it is it's sad to see. Sasha's latest Substack on the $500 million is hot, says CJP Rumble. I didn't see it. I didn't even read it yet. Let me know. Lots of views on that Sasha interview. Yeah, Sasha Latapova is one of our absolute best guests here in the Shannon Joy Show. Old world architecture is amazing. That's right. I agree with you. Don't obey. Oh, yeah, you guys are great today. Huge thank you to our good friend Inez Annie Cyrus, who is producing the Shannon Joy Show today, making everything happen. And of course, our sponsors. I am so thrilled, as you know, to be working with the folks over at Native Path. We love all of their products at the Joy household, but I especially love the collagen. And one of the things that you will notice in New York City is that women can spend an awful lot on beauty products, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on beauty creams and high-end makeup. And it would just blow your mind. If you're a guy out there, yeah, it's a lot. It's a billion-dollar industry. One of my beauty hacks throughout the past few years has been to just, say, oh, hell no to the expensive creams and makeups. I use like the bargain drugstore creams and makeup. I like to splurge on the real stuff, the building blocks. And this is why I focus on things like collagen, daily collagen every day in my coffee. It is one of my number one beauty hacks and the secret to great hair, shiny hair, strong nails, beautiful skin as we age, right? If you plaster expensive makeup onto saggy, aging skin that is losing its collagen, well, that doesn't do a whole lot. I like to focus on the skin and the actual production of collagen, and that's why I use Native Path collagen in my coffee every single morning so that I have the building blocks to age gracefully, right? We don't want to look a lot younger. I just want to look good for my age. And I'm pushing 50, guys. Collagen is my secret. Right now, 45% off from Native Path Collagen. They always offer up great deals for the Joy audience. So right now, go to getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. That's getnativepathcollagen.com/joy for an exclusive 45% off deal. It is the stock up deal for Native Path Collagen. It's the best price on the market. One of the reasons I love the Native Path products, from my perspective, I've used them for many, many, many years. And one of the reasons I love them is because it's the best quality product for the best price. No fillers, no preservatives. They don't add any flavors or fancy packaging. It's just great products at a great price. So get nativepathcollagen.com/joy for your exclusive 45% off. Okay, we have a few other chatters joining us on the live chat. Diog99 is with us. Great to see you, Diog. And a few others as well. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Done, fed up, been on Native Path for 5 weeks. I'm seeing a difference in my old man skin. It makes a huge difference, right? Like you want to spend your money on the things that are actually going to make a difference. And yeah, the Native Path collagen is, and honestly, so many of my friends, the ones that have, great skin, great hair, great nails, they're all using collagen for sure. Bill Benz is with us on the live chat. Great to see you as well. You guys are going to be hearing from our other sponsors today on the Shannon Joy Show, Colonial Metals Group, just a little later. And of course, my friend Dom Polano of PCM and Associates. He is my financial advisor. If you are in the markets, you definitely want someone who shares your values. And that's Dom Polano. His website is pcmpolano.com. That's pcmpolano.com. So you're going to be hearing from all of them as well. All right, let's see if we have Diog99. I thought Shannon was 29. I'm buying that collagen. Well, not 29. There is good lighting here in this studio, and that is always a secret. But no, lots of sun. I never stay out of the sun. I do keep my face out of the sun, but in general, I get lots of vitamin D. I like to ground. I like to fast, lots of sleep. I don't know, low carb diet. I do a lot of protein. I'm not a carnivore, but I don't know. It's a very simple routine that I have. Push-ups and sit-ups in the morning, little bit of stretching. I don't know, good, clean living plus the collagen. Buskman, good news, Shannon. A man with stage 4 cancer was healed by Psalm 103 and ivermectin fenben combo Bring back Dr. Makis. Absolutely. You guys know that Dr. Makis is a regular on the Shannon Joy Show. In fact, Dr. William Makis helped one of my very close family friends. She is on his protocol. She was diagnosed with a stage 3 cancer, and she is doing amazing. Dr. Makis is helping so many people, and you just have to be really careful because there are a lot of imposter accounts out there. You want to make sure you get the real Dr. Makis. The best way probably to do it is to follow him on Twitter, message him on Twitter, and go to his Substack. That is where you can get his real account and his contact information. That's amazing, Buskman. It was a praise report at my church. Stage 4 cancers. I'm hearing more and more of these alternative protocols in addition to, they call it complementary care to regular cancer protocols. And in some cases, people are going the straight up natural route. So yes, Buskman, I hear your request. We will bring Dr. Makis back in and we'll shoot for next week. Any other requests for any interviews, any new guests that you would like to bring in, I am happy to oblige. Rothen Walker, Shannon, you are out of the sun until after your show. Noon is when the sun is most dangerous and damaging. Sun is good, but gotta have time out of it, especially around noon. Rothen Walker, that is such great advice. And again, everyone is different. I have friends who have super fair skin. They need sun exposure as well. But when your skin is burning, or your body is going to tell you when you're out there and you've had too much sun. I have an olive complexion. I'm Italian, a big portion Italian. And so I tend to do pretty well in sun, but I agree with you that noonday sun is pretty strong. And you're absolutely right. I get most of my sun in the afternoon between about 3 and 5 o'clock. It's one of my favorite things to do. I like to sit on my back patio. We have a pebble patio, and I stick my feet in the ground, bare feet to ground, and just put my face right in the sun. Well, with a little zinc sunscreen on the face, but sit right in the sun, and I absolutely love it. The kids do not use sunscreen either. That's one of our, I know. Bill Benz. Okay, Kurt Metzger is a request. Never heard of him. And like I mentioned, we will bring Dr. Makis in. I did promise you guys last week, we got to such amazing guests that I didn't have a chance. Yes, Tom Haviland Buskman. In fact, Tom had a conversation with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya about the white fibrous clots. He just emailed me the other day, and that should be pretty interesting. As you know, we're pretty unsatisfied with MAHA and the developments or lack thereof for medical freedom coming from the Bobby Kennedy Jr. administration. That includes Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Marty Makary, among others. And so we know that Tom Haviland is holding their feet to the fire. Great guest recommendation. Buskman will look for Tom Haviland. I'm going to write this down. Again, a great source. Courtney Turner was amazing. Thank you, Be My Valentine. That was an unbelievable interview last week with Courtney Turner. She is an expert in technocracy and also what I'm now calling techno-fascism. I really believe technocracy is an appropriate term for what we're seeing expand here in the United States of America, but I don't think it really captures the command, the control, the surveillance, and the massive control mechanism that is being set up. It looks more like techno-fascism to me. It is a coming together of the corporate elite, primarily the tech elite, and the federal government, and it's absolutely terrifying. In fact, we have a story today. There is a rumor in Washington, D.C., I kid you not, that Peter Thiel, so Washington, D.C., according to some top officials in Washington, D.C., is going to become the first freedom city. And the rumor is that Donald Trump, I kid you not, is going to, I guess, sell Washington, D.C. to Peter Thiel to become the first technate, which is a corporate-run techno city. They're going to call them freedom cities, but they're anything but that. absolutely terrifying. And so we could ask, I mean, that would be a great topic for Courtney Turner. I also have a video of a report on that that we might get to. Yeah, Rothen Walker, we don't put sunscreen on our family. Yeah, kids were were at the pool most of the days in the summer, and only a couple burns when they were stubborn about taking some time out, not covering up. Yeah, I think sunscreens have been shown to have a lot of chemicals in them, not so good for your body, and also have cancer causing agents. So if we use zinc in the Joy household, or if we use sunscreen in the Joy household, it is zinc. Bill Benz, Tommy Robinson. Tell me about Tommy Robinson, Bill Benz. I have never heard of him, so I will take a look at that. I promised you guys a list of some of the best independent information purveyors, so commentators, journalists, analysts, you name it. I promised you guys that twice last week and never got to it. So I want to give you a list of just some of my top. As you guys know, we're independent here in the Shannon Joy Show. Not left, not right. I think they're both criminal operations. Both political parties are criminal cartels, and they work together, especially in Washington, D.C. That doesn't mean there aren't good Republicans out there, maybe at the local or state level. But for the most part, we are firmly independent, and we need more and more independent media, voices, journalists out there telling the truth as best they can about what is going on. So these are some of my tops. As you know, Peter Schiff is joining us today in the Joy Virtual Studio. He'll be with us in just a moment. For the Shannon Joy Show, he is one of my tops when it comes to economics. Daniel Horowitz, he is the host of the Conservative Review podcast. He is unbelievable. I've been using him for over 10 years. Of course, Jesse Colombo on gold and silver and finance. Been using him for about 10 years. David Knight. Patrick Wood, he is the editor-in-chief over at technocracy.news. By the way, if you don't have a pen and paper, get one out right now because I'm going to be giving this list. Of course, you guys like David Leach. I do as well. He's a regular contributor here in the Shannon Joy Show. He is the strident conservative. He has a website, Catherine Austin Fitz, over at Solari. The Last American Vagabond, by the way, setting up to have him again into the Joy Virtual Studio to talk about what is going on in Gaza. More and more global watchdogs and even Israeli ex-generals and officials are calling out the current Israeli government for a genocide that is occurring in Gaza. We cannot look away from this. As you know, this is not a major topic here in the Shannon Joy Show, but something very, very wicked is happening in Gaza. We're going to have Last American Vagabond on the Shannon Joy Show, Ryan Christian, probably this week or the week after. Sense Receptor is one of my favorite aggregators on Twitter. You can follow him. Derek Bros, Annie Cyrus, of course. We like her positions on what is happening in the Middle East as well. She's also the producer of the Shannon Joy Show, the amazing Inez Annie Cyrus. Make sure you follow her Substack. Of course, Mary Talley Bowden, Naomi Wolf, Sasha Latapova, amazing in the health arena, some of the truth tellers out there. We have Ed Dowd, who is great on what is happening economically and finance. Debbie Lehrman, her Substack is the best. I mentioned, of course, Peter Schiff in terms of money, markets, gold, silver, crypto, finance, you name it. We welcomed yesterday in the Shannon, last week in the Joy Virtual Studio, Aaron Day. Follow him on Twitter. He's great as well. And of course, Dr. Peter McCullough, among others. Dr. William Mackis as well. This is just a short list, my list, I wrote it out for all of you, of some of the best, and the critical component here is independent. The best independent truth tellers out there. They are willing to critique the left and the right, Biden and Trump, the Republicans and the Democrats, left-wing news media and right-wing news media. This is the critical space that needs to be filled in this country moving forward over the next 18 to 24 months and in the future, because as we understand from our perspective, both of these political parties are completely corrupt and they are crushing the American dream. They're crushing our economy. They're grifting off the top. And whether it's the Biden administration doing it in the secret, right, in secret in Ukraine, or the Trump administration doing it right in our faces, neither is okay. So this is why independent media is so important. Love to hear from all of you. Please go to theshannonjoy.com. Shoot me an email, the Shannon Joy Show at gmail.com, the Shannon Joy Show at gmail.com. If you want to comment, ask questions, or make recommendations on that are willing to call out both political parties. We want to expand that network of people willing to stand up and tell the truth. And I'm always open to your recommendations. Yes, Mrs. Lovely, Pedro Gonzalez is excellent. He's an excellent researcher. And I've asked him multiple times to come into the Joy Virtual Studio. We're going to work on him again. Also, Whitney Webb is phenomenal. James Lindsay is great as well. I mean, there are so many. We will keep this list running for sure. All right, we have Peter Schiff. He is in the Joy Virtual Studio. He is warming up in the bullpen. When we come back, let's go to a quick break. When we come back, we have all of the questions for the Peter Schiff, another independent economic analyst, telling the truth about the reality of the American economy in relation to the world. We're going to learn from him over the next hour right here in the Shannon Joy Show. Keep it tuned right here. We'll be back in a minute. We also love our partnership with our friends over at the Satellite Phone Store. In an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a government-inflicted pseudo-emergency, whatever it is, the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be, and the better you're going to be able to make decisions for your family that will help you in the long term. And so Satellite Phone Store has been our one-stop shop at the Shannon Joy household for everything that we need to be prepared. Whether it is a solar panel or a generator, they have all sizes of generators that you can use in short term, long term, whether it's the Faraday collection, right? Protecting your devices from EMP, EMF, and also protecting your bodies from EMF radiation, 5G, 4G, 3G, you name it, all the Gs. They have the most extensive line of Faraday products, I think, on the market. And they are the highest quality Faraday you can get. From the blankets, the beanies, and the bags. They are always 10% off when you use the promo code JOY. So go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Always use that JOY promo code. It always works. And of course, they have the satellite phones. The best way for you to keep in touch with your loved ones when the lights go out. And as we have seen in recent news headlines, the lights are going out more and more. And as they are taxing our grid with this building of the techno digital gulag, they are using up more and more energy sources. And so many outlets are, you are seeing one story after another of predicted rolling brownouts, blackouts. This is coming. This is going to be a reality in the next 24 months because of the expansion of the technocracy and the data centers. And so this is when, we need to be prepared. That's why you need the satellite phones and all of these preparation materials. So sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. Let's bring our good. That's the story, the overvaluation. And Jesse Colombo talks about it in this piece. One of the reasons that he thinks that gold is not only going to surge to 4,400 very soon, he thinks in the next 10 years that I believe gold could reach or will reach at least, get this, 15,000 per ounce in the next decade. And that will be the case if we continue to see the corruption and the distortions and the profligate spending and the manipulations by not only the Federal Reserve, our fiscal and monetary policy, but by both political parties. And there is no end in sight, it seems. This is why I have been telling you it is not too late to get into gold and silver, whether it's physical gold and silver in your safety deposit box or backing up or moving big portions of your IRA or your 401k into gold and silver backed retirement accounts. I cannot recommend exploring your metals strategy with our friends over at Colonial Metals Group more. There is still time, there is still room, they are still there for you to talk to. And as you guys know, it's a company I use, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is the company that I use and I trust. I use them for both my physical gold and silver purchases and also for my independent, self-directed gold and silver backed IRA. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Without further ado, would love to welcome the amazing Peter Schiff into the Joy virtual studio. Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you, Shannon?
Excellent. I mean, as good as I can be, as you know, I watch this administration and the political class and the tech elites just grift off of the American taxpayer. It's really frustrating to watch, honestly.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed with Donald Trump, especially some of the stuff he's doing now. With what just happened with this shakedown of NVIDIA and AMD, where he's basically demanding that the companies cutting the government on a share of their revenue to be allowed to export. That's totally unconstitutional. It's unprecedented power grab by the federal government. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like bigger government. I like smaller government. I like free market capitalism. I don't like to see somebody trying to centrally plan the economy and suck money out of the private sector. I really don't like the rumors that are being bandied about regarding privatizing Fannie and Freddie, where it would be worse than before because now the entities would enjoy an explicit government guarantee, creating a much bigger moral hazard than the one that blew up in the global financial crisis. All the crypto stuff, the big beautiful bill, the tariffs. I hate to say it, but Trump is already worse than Biden.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
not, and that's not a good thing.
I mentioned
That's,
to yeah, I mentioned to friends over the weekend, at least the Biden family had, the decency to hide the grift and the criminality of their skimming off the top and making side deals and executing pay to play. The difference with this administration is it's quite breathtaking, actually. They're doing it right in our faces and almost laughing at us, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's all out in the open. I hadn't even gotten into that aspect of it, but they're taking, this grift to a whole new level. They're not even bothering to hide it with shell companies and money laundering. It's right out there in the open. I mean, you saw Tim Cook handed Donald Trump, a bar gold as a gift. I don't know how. I mean, if that bar, which was actually the base of this, plaque that he was given, but he
unbelievable.
said it was 24 karat gold. If it's solid, that bar is worth at least $1 million. That's a hell of a gift, to get an exemption from a tariff that shouldn't even exist.
Right in our faces. It's a bribe. It's like a bribe right in our faces. It's the most astounding thing. And conservatives, let's start here because you actually mentioned a number of the areas that I would like to, delve into today with you. That NVIDIA deal, the Fannie Freddie announcement, the, among other things, also the job numbers revisions. We'll get into all of that. But one of the craziest things for me is to witness, quote unquote, free market capitalists on the right and in conservative media hail this administration as pro capitalism because he's making deals with businesses apparently on behalf of the little guy. There's a lot of confusion, I think, among the right and those who are reporting on the Trump administration about what a free market is versus a what looks to be a crony capitalist or even quasi fascist. I call this techno-fascism. because it does seem to me to be a merging of the corporate elite class with the government class, and they scratch each other's back constantly at the expense of the little guy, the free market, the mom and pop business, and those of us who are just trying to get a nut in this world, maybe own a house one day and pursue the American dream. But can we just talk philosophically about that difference in the confusion that people have? I mean, just because you give a handout to a corporation doesn't mean you're a capitalist or a free market capitalist. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Shannon. I mean, just because Donald Trump wants to make deals with business and appears to be friendly to business because he wants to do these deals doesn't mean he's pro capitalism or pro freedom. Because remember, for every company that Trump makes a deal with, there's many more companies that he doesn't make a deal with that end up getting disadvantaged because they're not in bed with the government. And you don't want to see that. You don't want the government playing favorites. You don't want the government picking winners or losers. You don't want the government getting involved in private business. The government has to stay out. That's what a pro free market, pro capitalism president does, is it doesn't get involved. So what we want to do is extract government as much as possible from getting involved in business. So that means deregulation, that means less government spending, that means lower taxes. Those are all good things. But trying to use the power of the presidency to tilt the playing field in favor of the companies that he makes deal with at the expense of the ones he doesn't, and at the expense of the overall American economy, which will be weakened by presidential interference. I mean, Donald Trump is not the king, and he's certainly not a god. He doesn't know, which companies should win and which companies should lose. He needs to allow the free market to decide that, and he doesn't have the right to impose taxes at will. There's a whole Congress for that. The president is not a king. We have Congress that has to deliberate and pass these taxes, and then he gets a chance to sign it. But he can't bypass Congress and just go around hitting companies with taxes. And in fact, this deal that supposedly he's struck, through shaking a shakedown with NVIDIA or AMD, the government is not allowed. The federal government isn't even authorized by the Constitution to tax exports. But that is in effect what Trump is doing. He is putting a tax on exports, and he's doing an end around Congress. So it's unconstitutional twice. The way it's being imposed, and the fact that there's no authorization even for Congress to do it, but he's doing it on his own. So all this stuff is bad precedent. I mean, I hope that somebody challenges this stuff as being unconstitutional. But what happens is, some president, some Congress, they do something that's unconstitutional, and the courts just allow it, and then it becomes a precedent. And now more presidents, follow it. So if Trump is allowed to get away with this massive expansion of the power of the federal government, in particular the presidency, it is going to permanently diminish economic freedom and prosperity in the United States.
Well, in general, freedom as well, right? One of the most important aspects of a free market economy is competition. And when you remove competition by selecting just a few industry leaders or a few corporations in each sector that are chosen to be the winners, you're going to put out of business all of those competitive organizations that would make sure that there isn't price gouging, or that they aren't skimping on the product or screwing the consumer. But once you remove that competition, they gain more and more power. They have the ability to expand. And I think that's, Peter, when they get tyrannical. That's when I think, then they really begin to threaten basic liberty, basic principles of liberty.
And the worst of the examples is what they're talking about doing with Fannie and Freddie, which would be, one of the worst things I've ever seen in my lifetime a government do, especially given the bad example of what happened to those entities and how they helped create the conditions that led to the 2008 financial crisis, to try to resurrect them in a way that would allow them to do even more damage to the U.S. economy simply to enrich the people that donated to his campaign and maybe himself or his family. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
But
Let's
I think it could be a new low in American politics.
let's
And,
dive
and
into
and
that.
people are afraid. Shannon, he's got so much influence in the Republican Party that all these supposed free market commentators are afraid to criticize him because they're afraid that, well, they're going to upset their audience, and maybe they'll lose some ratings if they tell the truth about what Donald Trump is actually doing. And a lot of people, the minute you criticize Trump. Oh, what are you, a liberal? What are you? You're just a part of the woke mob. I'm the furthest thing from a socialist as you could be.
Right.
And unfortunately, I'm criticizing Trump from that perspective. Not because he's too much of a capitalist. It's because he's not a capitalist. You're right.
Mm,
What he's practicing or what he's advocating is fascism, because that's what happens when you get the government and private companies working together. That's
mm,
what it's about. It's about the government trying to control private industry through taxation and through a regulation. And that's really what Trump is doing, is trying to entwine the government with these businesses. And that's not capitalism, and it's certainly not what America is supposed to be. And if Trump wants to make America great again, that's not the way to do it. That's the way to make it even further from greatness than it was when he became president.
absolutely. A devolution or a devolution from free market principles, the founding of our country, and what actually made the country great. It was freedom, freedom. Our constitutional, our natural rights, but also the freedom to buy and sell without the boot of the government on our neck on a regular basis. We're talking to Peter Schiff today. Make sure you support him in his efforts. You can find all of his work over at schiffradio.com. Follow him on Twitter at Peter Schiff. And if you would like to benefit from his financial expertise in investing, europac.com is the website. Let's dive into Fannie and Freddie, Peter. That was a great segue into one of the questions that I had for you, the question of the dream of home ownership in the United States of America, the American dream. I will tell you, Peter, today, the home that I live in my adorable little village on the Erie Canal in New York State, I couldn't afford. I could not buy my own home because the value of real estate has become so inflated and so impossible, in addition to rising interest rates boxing out nearly every American. I seriously question whether or not my children will be able to purchase a home outright given these conditions. We now have Donald Trump taking this crisis that they created with Fannie and Freddie in the first place and privatizing Fannie and Freddie, which he is saying is free market capitalism. I mean, this is how convoluted the messaging is, and I think it's on purpose. But announcing that they're now going to meddle with that. Can you help an average American understand what is going on? And feel free to go back to the original creation of Fannie and Freddie when they took over all of the mortgages during the Bush administration. I don't know if you remember that, what that's become, and how that has set us up for where we are today. And then why what they're proposing again is not going to solve anything, but it's only going to make things worse. But I would love, I mean, there's no better person to explain this in a way that people can understand than you. So I want to take a crack at it.
Yeah, well, first of all, he's not really privatizing them. He's privatizing the short-term profits, but socializing the ultimate long-term losses. Because if he was truly privatizing the companies, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But if he was truly privatizing them, there would be very few people that would want to invest, because I think that there are a lot of banks that could outcompete Fannie and Freddie. I don't think they would have much value. The value in Fannie and Freddie is the fact that Trump wants to privatize them with a U.S. government explicit guarantee. So Trump wants to give them a monopoly on the right to buy up mortgages and then reissue them with a full backing of the U.S. government. Worse than ever before, because before there was no official government backing for Fannie and Freddie securitized mortgages. It was called implicit guarantee because the government actually told everybody, we don't guarantee these bonds. On every prospectus, not guaranteed, not an obligation of the US government. But investors always thought, well, yes, technically they're not guaranteed, but we think that they wouldn't let them fail. That was the view. But in 2008, when they went bankrupt, the government did exactly what a lot of people expected. The government bailed them out anyway, even though there was no legal requirement to do so. But what Donald Trump now wants to do is, in bringing them public, to make that implicit guarantee explicit by saying, yes, we do back Fannie and Freddie. And so, in other words, they can take whatever mortgages ultimately they're allowed to buy, bundle them up, and reissuing them with a U.S. government guarantee. So, a complete moral hazard. They'll try to make as much money as they can because everybody who buys these mortgages won't do their homework. Nobody is going to bother to check to see, are these really good quality mortgages, because no one's going to care, because it's all going to be guaranteed by the U.S. government. So it's a horrible situation. It's the worst thing you could do. And the only reason that I can see that Trump would do it is because there are a lot of people who bought stock in these companies that donated to his campaign that could make billions of dollars from this boondoggle. And, if you go back to the original creation of Fannie Mae, which was FDR created it during the New Deal, it was initially a government agency. It wasn't a government-sponsored enterprise. It was part of the U.S. government, and they were only allowed to buy FHA-insured mortgages and then repackage that. It wasn't until really 1970 that they were, they kicked them out as a separate entity, and then they created Freddie Mac, so there'd be two companies that could compete with one another. And they allowed them to buy conventional mortgages so long as they, complied with certain government rules that the government would set for, down payments, mortgage size, credit quality, stuff like that. But if you conform to that, then Fannie and Freddie could buy the mortgage and securitize it, but they were still not reissuing it with any kind of government guarantee. But the government did create and sponsor the enterprise, but it did not insure any of their debts. But that eventually became a disaster because they were politicizing it, trying to get Fannie and Freddie to constantly lower their standards and underwrite riskier and riskier mortgages. And that, blew up in 2008. I mean, it would be better to get rid of these agencies entirely and just allow there to be a free market in mortgage securitization,
right?
Instead of creating, and they're even talking about maybe combining them into one entity and making them one monopoly instead of a duopoly, which is also worse than the situation before. But one of the things that Fannie and Freddie has done over the years is help push up home prices. And so it's ironic because the reason that the government got involved in mortgages was to help Americans afford homes. They achieved the opposite because the credit that has been misdirected into mortgages has caused home prices to be much higher than they otherwise would have been without Fannie and Freddie. And so Fannie and Freddie has been helping to keep real estate prices artificially high. And so the only way people can afford to buy these inflated homes is to borrow a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so people think the government is helping them because the government is lending them the money to pay these inflated prices. But if it wasn't for the government, they wouldn't need to borrow all this money because the prices would be a lot lower.
Right. A complete distortion of free markets, right? Like when, that beautiful invisible hand that sets prices according to public demand, according to the market. And it's just one layer of involvement after another, usually with a government connected entity getting their payout or their payoff. and it really is just corruption. What is this going to do? I mean, what do you see in the near future for the average American? My son, he is 19 years old. He's going to graduate in a couple years from college and would like to buy a home. Do you think that there's any hope for home ownership for young people?
Well, yeah, look, eventually real estate prices are going to get hit. They're going to, and so the prices are going to come down, and you know, so I think that people will be able to buy them.
Okay,
They won't
hopefully.
be as expensive now. Because people that own homes, some people are going to have to sell. They're going to go broke. A lot of the people, the older people who have homes, are going to run out of money. They're going to run out of purchasing power. They're going to get caught up in a massive inflation.
Mm.
They're going to lose money in stocks. I mean, if they got suckered into cryptocurrencies, they're going to lose a lot of money there. That's another problem with the Trump administration, picking winners and losers. He's picked the crypto industry. He said the U.S., we need to get the government subsidizing the crypto industry. He wants to make America the crypto capital of the world. Why? Why does he want to decide? Especially since he's picked a loser. He's basically said we want to take a Ponzi scheme and we want to lead the world in this. We want to be the leader in a pyramid scheme. So it's ridiculous that if you're going to pick winners and losers, don't pick crypto.
Right, right.
That's the joke. The government doesn't pick winners and losers; it just picks losers, and that's what they've done. But real estate prices will come down in real terms. I mean, if people own real money, if you own gold and silver, real estate's going to be really cheap for you. In fact, if you own gold and silver mining stocks, gold's up about 26% this year, 9%, something like that, 28%. Gold stocks are up better than 70% year to date.
Wow.
And I think this move is still early on. I think that, people will be able to buy a lot of house if they get some money into gold and silver mining stocks now, because I think by the time this bull market is over, these stocks are going to be many, many multiples of their current price.
How imminent do you think this collapse will be? One of my other questions, Trump is claiming that the economy has never been better. We are in a golden era, yet we see these insane revisions, right? So when the numbers come out, first they lie about the numbers. And you mentioned in one of your recent shows that, government reporting of economic numbers is like the mafia issuing a report on crime, right? Or a kid writing their own report card. Like they, even the numbers themselves are baked into the cake. They're flawed. But you have these reports come out about these great job numbers or not so bad job numbers, and then the most recent revisions were so bad, so breathtaking, that Trump fired the lady who released them.
Yeah.
And you could say that about inflation, manufacturing, unemployment, like umbrella perspective regarding the economy, golden era, or I mean a big zero. Where are we?
Every single jobs number that's come out since Trump was president was sharply downwardly revised, and so that every jobs number that he touted as being better than expected was actually worse than expected. And the last 2 months of downward revisions were the worst 2 months in over 50 years, I think, of downward revisions. And Trump didn't fire her because, they got it wrong and they had to revise it. He fired her because the numbers were bad. He claimed that it was all rigged and that, it was really strong job creation, and she lied.
So the fake numbers were real and the revision was fake, and so he fired the lady who revised the fake numbers. Like,
yeah, look, this is how Trump operates. This is his thing. Because remember, when he ran for president the first time, this is 2016, he specifically said the unemployment numbers were fake. And when the numbers were coming out, 5% unemployment, he was saying it's 10%, it's 20%, it's 30%. Every time he gave a speech, the real number was higher and higher, right?
Yeah.
But the minute he became president, all those fake numbers were real, because now he claimed credit when the fake 5% became fake 4.5%. He was like, see, I'm a great president. Look at how low unemployment is. It's only 4.5%. And I think a reporter actually asked him about that, and he laughed. And he said, well, the numbers were fake then, but they're real now. Right.
Right in
And
our faces. Again, it's like he's laughing at us. Like, you know, double-barreled middle finger to the American people every single day, like almost mocking. I mean, it's amazing that so many people fall for this. I
yeah,
just
they have. A lot of people have fallen for it, unfortunately, but, it's the Trump show, and he's getting away with it. And, the numbers, I was on my podcast, as you know, when we got those two jobs reports that were downwardly revised and everybody was celebrating them, Wall Street was celebrating, Trump was celebrating. I was saying, hold the champagne. These numbers are going to get revised down. I did not believe the numbers, and I could tell from the way they've been doing it. They always start with a high number, and then they get more data, and they realize that they guess too high, because a lot of it is a guess. They don't know early on, and they make a guess, and then they get more data, and they revise it down. Every single revision is down. Like, they're never up. It's not like they ever guess low. They always guess high. So it's pretty predictable. It's not a random coincidence. And I think the unemployment numbers, the GDP numbers are also overly optimistic. They're going to get them revised down at some point. I think the inflation numbers are also wrong. I think they're too low. I think all these government numbers have design flaws, because the government came up with the methodology for computing these numbers. So, see, I don't think that they're not rigging them. It's not like they're doing the numbers and they're getting a job number that's low, and they're saying, well, we can't report this low number, go back and, change it. And they're like, they're lying about it. I think the way the numbers are calculated, the formula, right, that they use to do it was designed in such a way that you're going to overstate growth, you're going to overstate job creation, you're going to understate unemployment, you're going to understate inflation. I mean, just take unemployment, right? The unemployment rate in the last jobs report, I think, was like 4.2%. But that's what we call U2. There's another measure that's called U6. And that one went up to 7.9 from 7.7. Now, nobody talks about that 7.9 number. But back in the early 1990s, that was the number. That was the number we all used. So when they say, oh, we have low unemployment because it's only 4.2%, and back in the 90s it was a lot higher. No, it wasn't, because the number that they were using in the early 90s is that U6 number that nobody talks about. And so if we're going to make an apples to apples comparison and say, hey, what's the unemployment rate compared to what it was in the 90s? It's almost 8%. And so there's no way that you could say that that's low unemployment. And by the way, even that number isn't totally apples to apples, because in the early 1990s, and of course in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, the unemployment rate included all the people who were unemployed but were no longer actively looking for a job because they were discouraged and didn't believe there was a job out there. So they weren't working, but they weren't looking, and so they still counted. Those people aren't in the official number at all, right? If you're not looking, you're not counted, right? Even if you've only been unemployed for a day, if you're not looking for a job, you're not unemployed, right? Even though you're not working. But the U6 number includes the people who are discouraged, but only for the first year. So if you've been out of work for 2 or 3 years and you're not looking, you're not considered unemployed anymore. But in the early 1990s, you were. So the whole thing is BS, right? But it's not because they're faking the numbers. The numbers are designed to be fake. They're conning the public into thinking the unemployment is low. And the crazy part about it is the Federal Reserve actually looks at that number and says, oh, we've achieved our mandate. We're at full employment. We're not even close to full employment.
Well, and this is bearing out in the headlines, 2 headlines that you pushed out that I have linked in the top headlines for today, August 11. from Zero Hedge, 120 million square feet. Store closings in the U.S. are on pace to set a new record high in 2025. So it's getting worse, not better. And then shocking record explosion in student loan delinquencies marks the start of a potential next debt crisis. At some point, Peter, will it be impossible for the Trump administration to put lipstick on this economic pig? Is there a reckoning coming, or do they have more tricks, more Bitcoin, crypto, stablecoin, money printing, Federal Reserve, you name it, kind of tricks up their sleeves to kind of pretend that this golden age is in place? Your thoughts?
Yeah, this record number of store closings obviously should be, a sign that all is not well. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't just claim that we have a strong economy or a booming economy. He says it's the hottest economy in the world and it's the strongest economy in world history. That's how much he exaggerates it. But he just inherited 6 months ago the worst economy in the history of the world. How do you go from the worst economy in the history of the world to the best economy in the history of the world in such a short period of time? So, I mean, none of what he says is true. It's all part of his persona, his, spiel, his marketing campaign that, Biden is the worst and I'm the best, and everything is fantastic. And I think, maybe it goes to his head, which is why he's, making all these deals, thinking that he knows so much more than the free market and that he should micromanage the US economy because, he was such a great success as a private businessman that he, that's going to translate into success, for the nation. He did make some money, but he bankrupted a lot of businesses along the way. It's not like
Right.
he had the Midas touch,
That's for
and
sure.
everything he touched turned to gold. He had a lot of bad investments, a lot of things that didn't work out, and I think his most success was The Apprentice. I think it was more which was entertainment, which was a show, you know,
Mhm.
um,
Many
and
people
he
speculate.
benefited a lot as a real
Yeah.
estate developer. He benefited from a lot of the cheap money of the Fed and the inflation that the Fed was created. I mean, in a different situation where we had better monetary and fiscal policy, Donald Trump may have gone bankrupt for good. Who knows?
Mhm.
How he would have fared in a free market. Instead, he benefited from the unlevel playing field that was created by the Fed. Um, but
Well,
yeah,
there are many who speculate that this is, that back in the day when he was in trouble, that's when some of the big money poured in. He was bailed out himself when he was, declaring bankruptcy, and people wonder if maybe what we're seeing on Capitol Hill is an extension of The Apprentice, another show. He's a front guy, but there are people behind him who have purchased him in order to achieve certain goals. That's speculation, but it appears to me that he's working for someone, doesn't seem to be the American people. Can the market correct this? Is there enough of a market left, Peter, to correct what the corrupt, crony capitalists in Washington, D.C., with Trump at the helm, are trying to implement here? Do you
yeah.
think that?
Look, I
Yeah,
look once the stock market. Look, we had a big drop in the stock market following Liberation Day.
yeah,
That was just a look at what could happen. I think that we're going to roll over again. I think that the problems are substantial. They're going to get worse. People are going to see that in the economy as the economy gets weaker and inflation gets stronger. Ultimately, the Fed is going to cut rates. They are going to go back to quantitative easing, but I don't expect it to have the same result as it did the last several times they went to that well. I think that it's going to blow inflation up in a bigger way. I think the inflation that Americans are going to live with under Trump is going to be much worse than what happened under Biden. And a lot of the inflation that we had under Biden started under Trump. Trump, handed that inflation baton to Biden.
yes,
He signed off on the big COVID bailout plans and the
yep.
PPP and all that nonsense. I mean, yeah, Biden made it worse, but he made it worse because Trump established a precedent. Had Trump taken a free market approach to COVID, we might have had a very different, result. But unfortunately, he didn't do that. But it wasn't that Trump started this. I mean, this inflation problem preceded Trump. I mean, look at what happened with Bush and Obama. I mean, they've been doing this, with the help and the encouragement of the Federal Reserve ever since Alan Greenspan in the 1990s, and he actually started in the 1980s, in the mid 1980s. So we've been making these mistakes and kicking the can down the road for a long time. And so, Trump didn't start the problems, but he is making them worse. And he may be the guy that's in charge when, everything finally comes crashing down. And we could see that. In fact, the sooner the better, actually, because, the longer it takes, the worse it's going to be.
That's, I'm going to tell you, that's kind of what I worry about, Peter, is that they certainly do not, any type of collapse that begins to apply actual economic pain, severe pain to average Americans, small to medium sized businesses, I think would be enough to alert the people to what is actually happening. And then they would be facing an absolutely enraged public and constituency groups. So from my
biggest
perspective,
problem, too, is that Trump is not being criticized by the right people. He's being criticized by the left for being, I guess, too much a capitalist, giving too much power to the private sector, when that's not what he is doing. But he's being defended by the people who should be criticizing him. He's being defended by people who purport to stand for free market capitalism. Like, look at Larry Kudlow, right? Every day, the path, free market capitalism is the best path to prosperity. Well, then why is he supporting every anti-free market capitalist thing that Donald Trump wants to do?
Right.
So when the people who supposedly believe in capitalism don't criticize the president who is undermining it, and then it collapses, all the credibility, unfortunately, falls to the left. It falls on the Democrats who support socialism and who advocate for socialism. The problem is, what Donald Trump is doing is socialism, whether you want to call it fascism or not, because fascism is simply one form of socialism.
Certainly.
But the government, I mean, that's what Trump is advocating. The Democrats are criticizing him for the wrong reason, and their solution is to actually do more of what Trump's doing.
Right. Thus the uniparty. This is why we call them a nasty, nasty unibrow political system, because they complement each other. And as you mentioned, one takes the baton after the other. It's just a different form of socialism, fascism, and tyranny. We're talking to Peter Schiff. If you want to benefit from his expertise in the markets, go to europac.com. That is europac.com. Peter has been one of the most consistent voices in finance, gold and silver, crypto, you name it. He never changes. And that's why he is a valued expert on the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, let's talk about the people who will win. This is a crisis situation. The American economy is in shambles, but there are smart things that you can do, even if you're not rich, even if you're not connected, that regular people can do. And I want to go there, Peter, as we close out this show. So when we come back, what the little guy can do. I also have some of your questions here that you guys have pushed out onto the live chat. If you have a question for Peter, keep it broad, keep it relevant, but put it in all caps, and we'll see if we can't get to a rapid fire Q&A at the end of the show. Keep it tuned right here on the Shannon Joy Show. We'll be back in a minute. All of the Native Path products are simply amazing. In the Joy household, we use the Hydrate. We use the Native Path Complete Protein. We use, obviously, the Native Path Collagen, which is right now on sale, 45% off if you go to getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. And that's a limited time, but it is the cleanest, the best, the highest quality collagen on the market at the absolute lowest price point. This is why I love their products. In fact, devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy the other night, he uses everything, but every so often, if he plays volleyball, he will cramp up, or if he's doing some type of strenuous activity, he'll get these cramps. It's not very often, but middle of the night last week, he like, I'm like in the bed next to him. All of a sudden he's like, oh my gosh, like screaming, yelling, like stiff as his board. His feet are out like completely straight. And apparently both of his legs cramped up. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like trying to like get him up and turn him around in the bed because he can't like bend his legs. And he goes to me and goes, get me the native path hydrate now. Get me the native path hydrate, because it has the electrolytes in it. And so like I'm running downstairs and I'm mixing it up and I bring it up to him, and it took care of it. But like, that's how dependent the whole family is. My son has an entire box full of all of the stuff he's bringing back to college, and he wants to get his volleyball team on it because they're just great products. They deliver, they're clean, and the price points are absolutely perfect. So we love the team over at Native Path. Please go to their website, getnativepathcollagen.com right now. We know what collagen does for your hair, your nails, your skin, your joints. It addresses joint pain. And we know that as we age, we lose a lot of the production of collagen in our body. So this is why I use Native Path Collagen every single day in my coffee. Doesn't help with cramping, but they have the hydrate for that. Getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. True story about devastating cramping up every so often. Get nativepathcollagen.com/joy. Peter Schiff is with us today on the Shannon Joy Show, talking about the real economy versus Trump's golden age economy. Another show, another facade. And unfortunately, this is going to come crashing down at some point. You can't maintain this forever. Peter, what would you recommend to average Americans who want to pursue the American dream? They'd like to start a business. They'd like to own a home. They would like to not be taken down in this tidal wave of financial instability. The average American, what's your advice?
Well, I think that right now you have to make the right investments and recognize that inflation is going to drive nominal prices much higher, but in real terms, they're actually going to go much lower, at least for something like a home. U.S. residential real estate is going to be a lot cheaper if you have the means to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I mean is that, let's say a price of gold, a house, you could buy a house for 100 ounces of gold, right? What is, gold's $3,400, right? An ounce. So 100 ounces of gold, what is that? $340,000, right? Let's say that's what the house costs. That'd be a pretty cheap house, actually, if you could find one for $340,000 these days. But just for the analogy,
yeah,
the price of that house might triple to $1 million, right? But at the same time, gold can go to $10,000, $20,000 an ounce, and that would mean that the price in terms of gold would actually come down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to be able to afford to buy that house, you have to own assets that are going to hold their value when real estate does not. Now, if you really want to leverage that, as I said earlier, with gold mining stocks, I think if the price of gold triples, gold mining stocks could 10x easily, maybe more. And so if your gold stocks go up 10 times and a house doubles or triples, the house is a lot cheaper for you. You can sell your gold stocks. Now, you got a capital gains issue. So depending on what the tax is on the capital gains, that might be a problem. But I think that people have to get their money out of dollars. They have to get their money out of U.S. dollar denominated assets. I think, foreign stocks, dividend-paying stocks, and something you may be able to do if you don't want to sell assets, if you buy dividend-paying stocks, and we have portfolios of foreign dividend-paying stocks, but the dividends on those stocks may rise so much that you could just use that dividend income to either pay a rent on a house in the U.S. off of that income, or maybe use it to cover the cost of a mortgage if you end up buying a house. Because I think that the dollar is going to lose so much value. And I think that in real terms, U.S. real estate is going to lose a lot of value, even if it doesn't in nominal, because the
Mm,
dollar loses even more value. So if the dollar goes down by more than the house, then it looks like the house is going up, but it's not going up. It's like if I'm in a car and I'm going backwards at 20 miles an hour, and the car next to me is going backwards at 30 miles an hour, that doesn't mean I'm going forwards. I just look like
right,
I'm going forwards because I'm not
right.
going backwards as fast as the other guy. And that's what's going to happen with people in their real estate. They may think the real estate is going up, but it's actually going to be going down. It's just their reference that is skewing the perspective.
So physical assets, things that will retain their value in financial turmoil, are basically where people should be. So obviously, everyone knows I'm a huge fan of physical gold and silver. I'm also a fan of the gold and silver backed IRAs, the independent accounts, as you're mentioning, even those mining stocks, gold mining stocks. And Jesse Colombo actually supported your theory. He is predicting that there was going to be another jump in gold, perhaps a $900 jump at some point in the fall. But he said, he could see it going to 15,000. It's basically a direct response to the instability and the corrupt nature of government systems. That's kind of when gold and silver does well. So if you have gold and silver and the value is increasing, that's going to be an area that people can resort to buy the bargains, right? So then when the housing collapse comes, or when the housing prices drop, that's when people can get in, but only if they have a portfolio that is rooted in physical assets that maintain their value in times of political turmoil. Is that what am I understanding what you're saying there?
Yeah, well, it's more inflation. I think
Okay.
that's going to be there. It's going to keep driving prices up. But ultimately, again, in real terms, prices are going to come way down. Um, and so that even if you don't have these assets, right? Assuming that your wages and salaries can rise, in that inflationary environment too, then the houses may be more affordable. But I
Okay.
just do think there's a big, downward move coming, especially when mortgage rates rise, and I think they're
Mm,
going to rise.
mhm.
Uh, you know, uh, because I think that inflation is going to drive a big premium into the mortgage market.
Okay.
Even if the Fed does go to quantitative easing to slow that down, ultimately it speeds it up, or it just makes the move bigger because quantitative easing is just creating inflation. And
Mm,
the more inflation the government creates, the more upward pressure on long-term interest rates that result.
I see. Here, rapid fire we have from the live chat. Sherry Aspen, where can we learn about gold mining stocks? Merrill Lynch does not seem to sell them.
Well, Merrill Lynch is a stockbroker, and they can you can buy mining stocks through Merrill Lynch just like you can buy any other stock. I mean, maybe a lot
Mhm.
of their reps don't recommend the mining stocks, but they should be.
Yeah.
But they certainly would, if you have an account at Merrill Lynch, they would certainly take your order unsolicited if you called up and said, buy a particular stock. But what you should do is buy my mutual fund, because that way you have a good portfolio. I got Adrian Day, who's the portfolio manager. He knows more about the mining industry than most analysts, or he's forgotten more than most analysts know. He's been doing it for over 40 years. I
Right.
think he's the best. That's why
Okay.
I hired him. But my gold fund is EP GIX, is the no load symbol. I don't think we're on the Merrill Lynch platform, but we're on, Schwab, Fidelity, all the big discount brokerage firms will have all five of my funds. But if you don't even have an account, you can go directly to my website at europac.com and
Okay.
click on the funds, and you can actually buy the mutual fund right off my website. You can download a prospectus, and you can tell you where to send the money, and you could just get some money into my mutual funds directly, even if you don't currently have a brokerage account.
Okay.
But if you have a brokerage account, it's very easy. Just find the symbol and buy it. But it's Euro Pacific Gold Fund. There's a load version. So if you're doing it yourself, you don't want to buy that one. So you want to look for the no load EPGIX is that symbol. And you get information on that fund and my other four funds on the website at europac.com.
Amazing. This is a good one. Diog99, should crypto be avoided
Well, look,
as we move forward? Tough question.
Well, look, look, if you don't want to lose money, then you should avoid crypto. But look, crypto has gone up a lot. Bitcoin has gone up a lot. Now Ethereum is having a run, and all kinds of other crap coins. And yeah, look, if you're a gambler and you want to take a chance of buying crypto and then selling it to some other sucker before the music stops, you could try it.
Yeah.
But I look at it as a speculation, as a gamble. Maybe you'll be successful and maybe you won't. But I look at, buying these mining stocks or, as an investment. I think if you buy them and hold them, you'll end up making money.
All
And
right.
I think the same thing with, dividend paying foreign stocks, are an even more conservative investment than just buying mining stocks, but you're just gambling because
Right.
somebody is bound to lose in crypto. The only way you make money is if somebody else loses it.
Hmm.
There's no wealth that's actually created.
Right.
It's just a transfer from the buyer to the seller. So you make money when you sell at the expense of some other fool who buys. Now, maybe that fool will be able to sell to an even greater fool, but eventually somebody is going to get left holding the bag.
That's right. That's right. Peter Schiff is, I mean, again, as always, a huge wealth of information. Get connected with him, europac.com. Go straight to the source for some of the best advice in terms of what to do and how to invest in these very tumultuous times. You are the best, Peter Schiff. Thank you so much for being with us today. I
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Shannon. Really appreciate it. You have a great show. Keep up the good work.
Absolutely. One of the best. One of the best. He does not pull punches. Europac.com. Also follow him on Twitter at Peter Schiff. Thank you for being with us today on the Shannon and Joy Show. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. So make sure you keep it tuned right here. Have a great day.